Uh, our second session is about how to pitch. Like anything that you do, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, whether it's anything, obviously sales become a very, very critical part of your journey. And if you're not able to sell what you are making, obviously the success of a startup is disproportionate. And the selling of a product, whether it's in the early stage or later stages, is obviously also a type of a pitch that you have to go and make to your customers, to your potential buyers. But before, or when you move from a bootstrapping stage to the seed stage, idea stage funding, that pitch becomes very critical. And it is being said that raising money is a full-time job. So if you're 3 or 4 co-founders, one of you is almost every time raising money and pitching and pitching and pitching to angel investors and PE funds or whatever you want to call them. So pitching and showcasing your product in front of investors, potential investors, is a very, very critical thing. And that is what we're going to discuss today. So with me, we have two great panelists. I'll just quickly introduce both of them. Girish is heading RBCF for almost a decade now. And he has been pitched at for VC funding, so obviously Series A or pre-Series A, not early stage or idea stage, but still he can tell that it's not what he thinks about when someone is pitching, and he can share his experiences on a good pitch, bad pitch, how to improve your pitch, and that is what we will focus on with him. Chirag is into a startup phase. Has been funded already, but he's an ex-Intellinet. He's obviously looked at mergers and acquisitions worldwide. So he understands when a company is trying to be acquired or wanting to merge, what pitching to do, what business plan to create, what not to do. And then obviously when he started Coos Sports a couple of years ago, he's obviously pitched at many funders and investors, and he understands firsthand, being both sides of the camp, whether how to raise money and not to raise money. So both of them will throw light on that. So I'll come quickly to Chirag. Chirag, how important are the first 2 minutes of a 10-minute pitch?
They are the most important. The first 2 minutes make the impression. In fact, in a pitch, irrespective of where the pitch is, if it's in a coffee shop or in a closed-door environment, the moment you enter, your pitch starts. So your body language, your demeanor, the way you carry yourself, those first 30 seconds, and there's enough published research globally, is that first 30 seconds really makes a difference as well. And then the moment you start talking and how you start talking are extremely important. The most often, and I can talk from my experience, most often what happens is that when we are pitching, clearly we are nervous. What we don't really understand is that the investor who's listening to your story is equally nervous. I tell you why he's nervous. He has a pool of capital he has to invest. He needs to make sure that he creates return on equity for his LPs or his investors as well. So one's got to go with a level playing field in any pitch environment. So the first 2 minutes, and we have heard about this, right? This elevator pitch. And there's been a lot of body of research in terms of how to get that right. But I think in that first 2 minutes, the first thing what I have been trying to do is to be absolutely clear that what is my pitch about? Is my pitch about my company, or is my pitch about trying to solve a problem? Or am I trying to create a new product or a proposition which changes the behavior of the consumer or the business as well? You need to be very clear at the outset as to what you're trying to do. And also in that first 2 minutes, Mahavir, you must try and talk about yourself. I can give you an absolute recent example, which is no less than 24 hours. We are in a large round of funding currently. And in my first 2 minutes, I realized that the investor has got some investments in some engineering companies. And I talked for the first 30 seconds, 40 seconds, that I understand that sector. So it's our job to also make that investor or the counterparty comfortable is perhaps the way I would start. I mean, I can go on this, but I just want to lay the context.
Thank you. So because we are dealing with pitches and elevator pitches, we'll keep our answers crisp and to the point and give the audience an opportunity to ask the questions. Girish, coming from a semi-government kind of a funding situation, obviously, other than when you go to startup festivals or competitions where you are verbally pitched, you tend to receive more business plans and PowerPoints or in writing projects. So how important are the first 2 or 3 slides or the preface or the brief? I mean, do you go through the whole thing very diligently, or you just the first page and then you decide whether to look at the next few pages or not? How, a similar question, but in a situation where a person is not available, when they are just emailing randomly to all investors, what is your advice on written pitching rather than verbal pitching?
A good question, Mavi. In fact, we receive nearly 200 business plans each year. Most of these are through emails. Physical discussions happen only when we schedule a meeting. And for even scheduling a meeting, investor would like you to send either a teaser. So normally a teaser is all about your business plan, just briefly, what is the pain point and what is the solution that you're offering, and about your team. More than that, I think a competition analysis. So these are the 2 or 3 areas that we look at, apart from whether this space is, we have the mandate for that space, or we have the ticket size. So first thing is, of course, the mandate and the ticket size, and after that we look at what is really the solution, that is the differentiator available in the team. These are the, I think, few very, very important aspects in teaser. Once you pass through the teaser, then of course you need to have a detailed pitch that should contain idea, your team, of course the differentiator, the stage that you are, have you created MVP, the traction, then the revenue model, the utilization, the requirement of fund, and the utilization. So these are basically the important aspects. Normally it should be a PowerPoint, less of a text, and very precise and crisp.
Great, thank you. So Chirag, I've seen many pitches, both written and verbal, and I've seen many of people and most everyone trying to tell us the market size of the problem or the product they are solving, and which is a common problem. Do you think that people are wasting time on a pitch on telling something that already exists? कि साबुन कितना ज़रूरत है?
Yeah, I think this whole market sizing and everything should be part of the written document, and it should just demonstrate that I have thought it through and I understand the market and I understand the nuances. But spending any time on market sizing or market scope in a pitch is a bad idea. It's
because no one's going to get the 100% market share anyways, and we don't even
absolutely. I mean, and whoever is going to invest is going to do his or her own market analysis and fit anyways. So any information which you give them has to be one of a useful sort of information, not focusing on marketing, on market size.
So which brings me to a follow-up question, why I asked this question. What is that domain knowledge, whether it's your competition, whether it's of the market size, whether it's other related businesses around, is very critical. And how important do you attribute the question and answers after the pitch? And should you leave certain things for the Q&A, that when a question is asked, you have a convincing answer and that makes a far more impact? Do you feel that way, or it's not required? You think everything should be answered in the pitch?
Yeah, unfortunately there's no steps or rules in pitching, but I think one's got to be smart, and that also comes with multiple pitching. It's like dating, right? I mean, you keep on dating girls and eventually you can find the right girl. So it's pitching.
Or boys, or let's not be gender.
Or a girl. But I think the whole idea is to be absolutely clear in what you're trying to say, and also smartly seed some points which create interest for them to do the Q&A. See, smart pitching is about them asking the questions which you want them to ask you. And that's what I mean. So trying to go too much into the detail particularly in the early stage, because they, as Giri said, very quickly they want to get an idea of the entire business as opposed to one aspect of it as well. So leave trails, and then that can follow through as questions.
Sure. Girish, especially when you're pre-series A or series A, you expect a mature presentation, you expect a mature business plan, you expect a lot of traction already having happened. Do you think at that stage, and if Hippocabs or Srajin were already successful, that they had 10-15 schools, or they had gross revenue of 1 crore a month for Ajmer, Agra, Delhi, Chandigarh, whatever, is the pitch at all important at that point of time, or just the numbers are important?
So probably if you're looking at the seed stage, now we have seed stage investment. And
Now you do. I'm sorry, I was talking.
So
Yeah,
if
sorry.
you are asking for seed stage,
Both. You can mix. I mean, if the numbers are with you, is the pitch important? If the traction is with you, if the idea has been successful in the market and it's growing month on month, is the verbal pitch, or is that important at all, or just the numbers, the first few slides that हमने ये कर लिया, month on month growth ये, Google Analytics ये हैं, are that far more dominating in your eyes when you're looking at an investment?
right? So most important part of the entire pitch is the idea itself. How strong is the idea? So from the, by just going to the idea, you have a complete sense that yes, there is a huge market, or there is an addressable market, or there is a little market. So that's the first impression you get. And then you go into the detail, what is the traction with the team, that comes subsequently. So the most important thing is the idea. Idea itself, how strong is the idea, and the solution being talked about.
So that comes to a follow-up question, and I would like to ask you, burn rate. Do you look at ideas that have been validated by numbers but are losing a huge sum of money? And also in terms of tangible, substance in the whole idea, whether this will be a future, will this be eventually making money, is this dominating the market? Are all these also important from your point? Because gone are the days where just the idea and having a burn rate, or WhatsApp is a one-off scenario where without revenue or without the numbers created a lot of things. Do you still, now the modalities are changing, even with Flipkart and Snapdeal, how important do you think is the base and making money or profit or revenue sooner or later important?
Right, so see, it all depends on probably if it is an internet company or a transaction-based company, or a company, let's say a healthcare company. So break-even are different for all these models. Important is that at unit level, are there sufficient margins? So initially, the number volume may not be that large, so it doesn't matter. The volume is low, so at the bottom line you are bleeding. That's the money you need. But at the unit level, you should be having sufficient margin. That's very important.
So there should be a gross margin somewhere,
margin.
And even if you're losing money after the overheads and OPEX,
right,
it's okay for you to get funded at that point. So
absolutely,
these people should not be worried about showing a burn rate if there is gross profit.
Especially at seed level, there would be burn rate. Yeah. It may not be necessary. There are some models. The company is profitable from day one, means the first year itself. But those companies, of course, they get certain priority, and especially these days, now there is a more and more emphasis on early break-even. So in place, rather, if I talk 1 year back, the 3 years down the line to get the break-even, that was acceptable. But probably nowadays, seed fund or the VC fund are looking, especially the seed fund are looking at 1 year or 2 year break-even.
So basically in the pitch, going back to our core topic, if there is substance in the company and it is a workable model, it would be okay to say that with confidence and show the path to delivering a profitable company.
Certainly. So the burn is acceptable. That's what is your question.
So they should not be worried about.
They should not be. They should be worried how quickly they can turn into break-even.
Yeah. Body language. You said something when you enter the room or when you're talking, or even thereafter. Any ideas or suggestions as to how they should conduct themselves?
Yeah, so...
should all co-founders pitch? Should one person pitch? Should two people pitch?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think rehearsing the pitch is extremely important. Who's going to take which slides if you're using PowerPoint? At what point are you going to pitch in? If the questions are asked around numbers or metrics, then who's going to respond? I think those are all part of dynamics, which if there are more than two people, sometimes it makes sense that the core part of the whole pitch is either led by the lead co-founder or the CEO, whatever. It just makes it easy. But also, just going back to your early question, Mahavir, is that when you're pitching, you need to give context through the numbers. Due respect to Girish as investors, they like numbers, right? They like numbers, not necessarily the profit and loss numbers, but how big is, if you're selling a particular product, then what's the volume which you achieved? What's your current burn rate, for example? How this is all getting mapped, how you're controlling. So with every aspect of qualitative aspect of your pitch, you should try and support it with a number so that it becomes very easy for the investor to start correlating where this business is really going about, rather than trying to do numbers separately and the quality aspects separately. I think you need to sort of blend it.
Chirag, so I may add that showing some hockey stick sort of a number is always, normally that's the mistake.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They are today at some level, maybe few lakhs, and then they show,
in
4 years they will be touching 100 crore.
Yeah.
So that you should avoid that. Everybody knows that execution of that level is almost not possible. So I think we should avoid
whether it's hockey sticks or on a graph where we are relating to your competition, you're in the far upper right corner, and everyone's in the left down corner, does not make sense anymore, because if it was that unique, you would not be coming to us, or we will be coming to you for funding.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with both of you on that. How are we doing on the audience questions?
I think we have a very interesting question here, asking that what are the 3 points one should keep in mind while one is actually making an elevator pitch?
So, Chirag, you want to?
Yeah. So,
the base and making money or profit or revenue sooner or later important.
Right. So see, it all depends on probably if it is an internet company or a transaction-based company or a company, let's say a healthcare company. So break-even are different for all these models. Important is that at unit level, are there sufficient margins? So initially, the volume may not be that large, so it doesn't matter. The volume is low, so at the bottom line you are bleeding. That's the money you need. But at the unit level, you should be having sufficient margin. That's very important.
So there should be a gross margin somewhere.
Margin.
And even if you're losing money after the overheads and OPEX,
right,
it's okay for you to get funded at that point. So
absolutely.
These people should not be worried about showing a burn rate if there is gross profit.
Especially at seed level, there would be burn rate. It may not be necessary. There are some models, the company is profitable from day one, means the first year itself. But those companies, of course, they get certain priority. And especially these days, now there is a more and more emphasis on early break-even. So in place, rather, if I talk 1 year back, the 1 year back, the 3 years down the line, if you get the break-even, that was acceptable. But probably nowadays, seed fund or the VC fund are looking, especially the seed fund are looking at 1 year or 2 year break-even.
So basically in the pitch, going back to our core topic, if there is substance in the company and it is a workable model, it would be okay to say that with confidence and show the path to delivering a profitable company.
Certainly. So the burn is acceptable.
Burn
What is
so
your question?
So they should not be worried about.
They should not be. They should be worried how quickly they can turn into break-even.
Yeah. Body language. You said something when you enter the room or when you're talking, or even thereafter. Any ideas or suggestions as to how they should conduct themselves?
Yeah, so...
should all co-founders pitch? Should one person pitch? Should two people pitch?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think rehearsing the pitch is extremely important. Who's going to take which slides if you're using PowerPoint? At what point are you going to pitch in? If the questions are asked around numbers or metrics, then who's going to respond? I think those are all part of dynamics, which if there are more than two people, sometimes it makes sense that the core part of the whole pitch is either led by the lead co-founder or the CEO or whatever. It just makes it easy. But also, just going back to your early question, Mahavir, is that when you are pitching, you need to give context through the numbers. Due respect to Girish as investors, they like numbers, right? They like numbers, not necessarily the profit and loss numbers, but how big is, if you're selling a particular product, then what's the volume which you have achieved? What's your current burn rate, for example? How this is all getting mapped, how you're controlling. So with every aspect of qualitative aspect of your pitch, you should try and support it with a number so that it becomes very easy for the investor to start correlating where this business is really going about, rather than trying to do numbers separately and the quality aspects separately. I think you need to sort of blend it.
Chirag, so I may add that showing some hockey stick sort of a number is always, normally that's the mistake.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They are today at some level, maybe a few lakhs, and then they show, in 4 years they will be touching 100 crore.
Yeah.
So that you should not, you should avoid that. Everybody knows that execution of that level is almost not possible. So I think we should avoid
whether it's hockey sticks or on a graph where we are relating to your competition, you're in the far upper right corner, and everyone is in the left down corner, does not make sense anymore, because if it was that unique, you would not be coming to us, or we would be coming to you for funding.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with both of you on that. How are we doing on the audience questions?
I think we have a very interesting question here, asking that what are the 3 points one should keep in mind while one is actually making an elevator pitch?
So, you want to?
Yeah. So, I'm sort of responding on my feet here. Know your customer or know your investor, who you're pitching. If there is an idea in the healthcare space, and if your product or your solution is targeting the healthcare space, please do a little bit of research. So know your customer or know your investor. Absolutely be very clear about what your product, your proposition, your solution, what is it that your business is trying to do. It has to be very clearly be articulated and almost rehearsed. And then the third piece is about exhuming, almost exhuming confidence in the way you go about saying, here's my plan. I'm going to tell you in the first, few minutes how and what I have done so far, and that sets context as well, because they don't know you. You're meeting them for the first time, and they're taking you at face value. So therefore, to improve your credibility as to who you are and what you're trying to do, give them some context by saying, I am from this engineering college or that university, this is what I did in my bootstrapping days. So bring it very, very clear in context, and then go and pitch. So 3 things.
You want to add something to this?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, initially they take you, especially the first 5 or 10 minutes are very important. They start with taking you at the face value, and then they get the impression. The impression is the person, yes, how confident he is about his plan, and what is the reality he is speaking, or he is just probably trying to aggregate or even bluffing.
Yeah.
So I will, with all due respect to all the startups and taking a pot shot at the 3 of us as investors, sometimes investors do think too much of themselves. They think that they have too much of domain knowledge. So is it a good idea to get into an argument with a dumb investor who gets into to tell you something about his life experiences or something? It's not
just accept it and say, yeah, fine, great, excellent.
It's okay to accept. Or you should not even one shot at trying to convince that person.
I think you will get a chance in the presentation. So once again, from experience, these guys, most of these investors, a lot of the new investors.
Most of us investors. You were part of RAIN also.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry. Most of us. I think probably may not, because of paucity of time. Look, let's take our concern. Because of paucity, we may not have expertise. But the worst thing to do, particularly for a young startup, is to try and upset the investor. I think one should take that point and say that I will come back to you, I'll respond to you. And even if it's a criticism, respond to it, but go back to it. And the investor will gain respect. from that entrepreneur if you are able to answer them.
Never burn your bridges.
I may add, Mahavir, I think it's very rare that investor would, probably dispute some number during the discussion. So they take that number, they just listen to that, and then they do their homework. I mean, they may not be aware, or they may be aware, even if they are probably not dispute during the meeting. So it's a very rare that there is a argument on the projection or on the number.
It depends the kind of
The difference
private equity guys are more
is if
aggressive.
I have come from the handicraft sector and if someone is pitching me handicrafts, I have so much of baggage.
Yeah.
If Rajesh is pitched on a medical this thing, he has so much of baggage of 25 years.
Many times,
So
entrepreneur
sometimes
has baggage.
there is baggage with
We become cynical. Yeah,
we become cynical, and we are going by a bekar.
Yeah.
Next question, please.
Okay, sometimes entrepreneurs get lost in the complexity of market research metrics while pitching to investors. How can they find the right balance between market research-based action, which they will be able to justify, and leap of faith actions that they won't be able to? So I think that's a very,
So just to answer that, Mahavir, most of the investors have access to huge database.
Absolutely.
They subscribe the database, probably none of you would be subscribing. So don't feel or don't think that your research is probably the best research. You may be hands-on, that's good, but probably the data, the amount of data that they have, global databases, the access of the global database that they have, probably is tremendous, and that gives them the edge of analyzing a particular situation.
Yeah, I think in the pitch or in the documentation presentation, the entrepreneur should try and spend time to create insights or interpret that market data, which is suiting his business plan, as opposed to going to market it as bad news. Investors don't have time for that. In your pitch, it should not be there. I mentioned it earlier as well.
Yeah.
somebody's asked what is the maximum number of slides or minimum number of slides, or the kind of time frame that you should keep in mind while you're making a pitch?
How long is a piece of string? I mean, it all depends. Shorter, as they say, short presentation is sweet, but if it is too short, is abrupt. You need to make sure that you time it. If you've been given an hour, you should be able to mentally rehearse how you're going to, and you should always keep buffers about 10-15 minutes for Q&A. So there is no answer for that.
From our experience, I can add that normally for 20 to 25 minutes of presentation is a good presentation.
Absolutely.
And number of slides may vary.
Yeah.
It may be from 15 to 20 slides. Ideal.
So while I'll just add something totally different to this. While you are being observed for your body language, your confidence, your team, and your ability, you should have a dual ability to understand, looking at the investor. How interested are they? How into you are they? Are they convinced? They're talking amongst each other. They're messaging or whatever. You don't care even the pitch if it's abrupt, because there's no point. But if there is interest, you can go on. You can go deeper into the subject. If you really feel that you have the audience with you, you can, like a session, if it's a boring session, if they were answering bad questions, I would have finished the session 10 minutes ago. So it just depends, you are in control. When you are pitching, you are the boss. You decide how long it should be, 5 minutes, it should be the right moment based upon your chemistry with that investor. That is the most critical thing that you have to judge. Other than that, nothing can work.
And to add to that, it is our responsibility to create interest. They have given you the time. You take it as a favor. We have given you time. Please consider it as a gift. You have to make sure that they are interested, and it is your job.
Absolutely. In fact, the time given to you is 25 to 30 minutes. It depends upon how much interest that you have created. So the longer the time, that means there is more chances of your getting success.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anything else, or should I go ahead?
I think we've covered 3 questions, but I have something in mind. When we call it an elevator pitch, which means it's
2 to 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So when you say another way, you're saying 25 to 30 minutes. So that's a more structured kind of a VC presentation kind of thing. So when you're talking about an elevator pitch, could you just touch upon a few points when it comes to an elevator pitch? Because that are very precious moments when you can really connect with somebody.
So the elevator pitch is actually those 3 things that Chirag had pointed. Product, solution, the domain, your team. Very important that we should feel that, product and solution is fine, but we should see the ability of you to be able to deliver that solution, and also the fact that you are so sure of it being successful. It should, seep out of your body language. That is the 2 minutes that you will get, that passion, enthusiasm, body language, and the core problem that you are solving and how you will make money. And maybe one question, which could be, there's no revenue model, there's too much competition. You should be ready to answer one question in those 2 minutes also. Which will be the most difficult question probably. If it's a crowded domain, then competition will be the question. If it is the lack of, if the problem does not exist, then that is the question. If there's no revenue, that is the, whatever that critical question might be, you should be ready for that answer. That is the 2 minutes in my way. Chirag?
Yeah. If it is a question to say rain, if somebody is caught Mahavi, for example, in an elevator, somebody should be able to pitch to him to say is that, first of all, why is he going to be interested? Has somebody understood, when I said know your investor, so what is the rain's philosophy? What is this business relevant, or is this pitch going to be relevant to a rain kind of philosophy, or anyone, any investor? So I think that's the only way Mahavir will be interested in listening to your next sort of 80 or 90 seconds.
Yeah, that is
otherwise the first 10-15 seconds, I mean, if somebody comes up with a, I don't know, I'm just trying to think, an agriculture business, for example. I'm just giving a sort of an example here. I mean, would Mahavir or Rain, does the Rain have that ethos to invest into a farm? I don't think so. Or a residential.
So that's the pre-elevator information.
Yeah.
During the elevator.
Absolutely, yeah. But you need to know that. So you create interest for the investor.
Okay, guys, you wanted to add something?
No.
Okay, thank you Chirag, thank you Girish, thank you everyone for listening to us. Hopefully it was productive and helpful, and hoping for better pitches in the coming future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mahavir.
Even for the Indian cricket team.